Hello everyone, welcome to Try Right. This is Pack 365, myself Srija. Today you're going to learn about the anatomy and physiology of the upper respiratory tract. You will be able to know about how pharynx and larynx are functioning. Okay, now let's go into the introduction of pharynx. So what is pharynx? It is also called as throat. It's a muscular tube that plays a key role in both breathing and digestion. It also acts as a common passageway for air which goes to the lungs and food which goes to the stomach. So how pharynx connected to the nasal cavity? It connects to the nasal cavity for air and also it connects the oral cavity for food to two different parts. So the larynx, it leads to trachea and lungs, whereas esophagus, it leads to the stomach. So because of this, pharynx is an important part of both the respiratory and digestive system. It also helps in speech and also the immunity. So what is the structure and location of the pharynx? Here you can see the picture of the pharynx. So pharynx is a funnel shaped muscular tube and it is about 12 to 14 centimeter long. So it starts at the base of the skull. So this is a skull, right? So it starts at the base of the skull and goes down to the sixth cervical vertebrae. So where it continues to the esophagus. So this is the pharynx and it connects to the esophagus. It lies behind the nasal and oral cavity and in the front of the cervical vertebrae. So you can think a pharynx has a tube at the back of the mouth. It's the mouth and back of the mouth and nose that directs the food and air to the correct destinations. So what are the divisions of the pharynx? So pharynx is divided into three regions. What are they? Nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx, or is also called as hypopharynx. So nasopharynx means behind the nasal cavity, oropharynx behind the mouth, and laryngopharynx or hypopharynx, it's near the voice box leading to the esophagus and trachea. So in simple ways, a pharynx is like a busy traffic junction in your body. So one road takes air to the lungs and the other it takes food to the stomach. So it also helps us to speak clearly and keeps us safe from germs through its lymphatic tissues like the tonsils. So in this picture, here is the nasopharynx, right? So behind the nasal cavity, this is the nasal cavity. So behind the nasal cavity, nasopharynx is situated above the soft palate. So what does this nasopharynx do? It serves as an air passage only. So no food passes here. And it also connects to the eustachian tubes, helping balance air pressure in the ears. It also contains the pharyngeal tonsils. Here near the mouth, you find the tonsils, right? So nasopharynx it contains the pharyngeal tonsils for immune protection. The name itself, naso means nose. So it's the part of the throat connected to the nose. And the middle part, oropharynx. It's behind the oral cavity. It extends from the soft cavity to esophagus. This is a soft cavity to esophagus. So what does this oropharynx do? It acts as a common passage for both air and food. It also contains the palatine tonsils and lingual tonsils. I said here nasopharynx, it contains the pharyngeal tonsil, whereas oropharynx, it contains the palatine tonsils and lingual tonsils. So what does this tonsils do? They help to defend against the infections. So the last part, the hypopharynx, or also called as laryngopharynx. So this is behind the larynx. Here it's a larynx. So larynx is also called as voice box. So behind the larynx and it also connects down to the esophagus. So what does this laryngopharynx do? It directs the food into the esophagus and air into the larynx. So one way to the esophagus and the other way to the larynx. So it acts like a crossroad for the respiratory and digestive tracts. See, what are the other associated structures? Larynx and trachea. So larynx is also called as voice box This produces sound and it prevents food from entering the windpipe. So whereas trachea is the windpipe that carries air into the lungs, and esophagus is a food pipe that carries food to the stomach. So in simple words, in nasopharynx, it handles air from the nose. Oropharynx, it handles both air and food, whereas hypopharynx or laryngopharynx, it leads air to the windpipe and food to the food pipe. So the next part, oropharynx. So what is oropharynx? It lies behind the oral cavity. It is the middle section of the pharynx. So it extends from the soft palate down to the epiglottis. It's open forward into the mouth through a space called the phasis. So oro means mouth. So that part connects the mouth to the throat. So lining. What is the lining of the oropharynx? It is lined with the stratified squamous epithelium. So why? It's a tough protective layer. So this type of tissue, it helps withstand friction caused by fur during swallowing. So what tonsils are present on the middle part? Palatine tonsils. Whereas on the first part, pharyngeal tonsil. In the nasopharynx, pharyngeal tonsil is present. Oropharynx, palatine and lingual tonsils are present. So these tonsils help trap and destroy pathogens entering through food or air. So what are the functions of the oropharynx? The common passageway for both air and food, because air passes from the nasopharynx to larynx, whereas food passes from the mouth to esophagus. It also provides the immunological defense. So what do you mean by immunological defense? It protects the body from infection by recognizing and fighting the germs. And also speech resonance. This oropharynx, it helps to give you tone and quality to your voice. It acts as a sound chamber. So this is about the middle part, laryngopharynx. Now coming to the last part of the pharynx, which is laryngopharynx or hypopharynx. It is the lowest part, right? You have seen in the picture, it is the lowest part. It serves as a shared passageway for both air and food before they separate into different parts. So what is the location? It extends from the epiglottis down to the esophagus. It also lies behind the larynx. So it is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. So what does this stratified squamous epithelium do? It protects the laryngopharynx from friction, which is called by swallowing food. So when you swallow the food, there will be a friction caused in the pharynx. So this stratified squamous epithelium, it protects the friction. So this laryngopharynx, it has two pathways. One is anterior and one is posterior. So anterior means it passes the air to enter into the lungs. And posterior, it passes food to enter the stomach. Through what? Through esophagus again. So what are the functions of the laryngopharynx? It directs the air and food. So how does it directs? It helps to guide air into the larynx and also the food into the esophagus safely. It is also involved in the swallowing reflex, deglutition. So what do you mean by deglutition? During swallowing, the epiglottis, it closes over the larynx, so preventing food or liquid from entering the airway. So whenever this epiglottis closes over the larynx, prevention of food takes place. So this coordination, it's a part of the swallowing reflex. So this protects the lungs so that food doesn't enter into the pathway. What are the functions of the pharynx? Respiratory function, digestive function, swallowing, protection and immunity, speech and sound resonance. So pharynx, it plays several vital roles in respiratory, digestive, immune and also the speech systems. So in respiratory function, what is the respiratory function of the pharynx? It acts as a pathway for air moving from the nasal cavity to the larynx and then into the lungs. It also helps warm, moisten and filter the air before it enters to the lower respiratory tract. I already said you, Before the air entering into the lower respiratory tract, it must be warm and moistened so that the inner parts of the respiratory tract couldn't get dry. So think of it as a air tunnel connecting the nose and lungs. So what is the digestive function of pharynx? During eating, pharynx serves as a passage for food from mouth to esophagus. So it ensures that food moves in the correct direction toward the stomach, not the lungs. Right? Food shouldn't be passed to the lungs because it blocks the air passageway. So it only moves towards the stomach. So this digestive function of the pharynx, it ensures the food moves whether the food is moving in the correct direction or not. So it's a part of both airway and foodway, a dual purpose passage. So swallowing, deglutition. So pharynx plays a key role in swallowing by coordinating muscles that, so this push down the forward. It pushes the food downward, so it closes the nasal passage. It also closes the airway so that food doesn't enter into the airway. It closes the nasal passage via the soft palate and it closes the airway via the epiglottis to prevent the choking. So this reflex, it ensures food enters the esophagus safely. So what is the fourth function of the pharynx? Protection and immunity. This pharyngeal tonsils and parental tonsils which are present in oropharynx and oropharynx and nasopharynx. So they act as an immune defense organs. So these tonsils have an immune function. Okay. So what they do, they trap and destroy the pathogens that enter through air or food. So what happens now? Pharynx is like a security checkpoint, like it is guarding the body from infection. So what is the last function of the pharynx? Speech and sound resonance. So the pharynx acts as a resonant chamber that helps to modify and amplify the sound produced by the vocal cords. So when you speak or when a sound comes from your voice box or larynx, this pharynx acts as a resonant chamber. So it helps to modify. I mean, it delivers the voice, it delivers your speech within correct way. It also amplifies the sound produced by the vocal cords. It also contributes to the top and quality of the voice. So these are the functions of the pharynx. Now let's discuss into the next organ of the upper respiratory tract is larynx. So larynx is also called as voice box, right? You all know about this. Larynx is also called as voice box. So you can clearly see a picture of larynx over here and the ligaments and also the cartilages of the larynx. So larynx is commonly called as voice box. It's a short hollow muscular organ in the neck. So this larynx is present in the neck. It is a hollow and muscular organ. So where it is connected, it acts as a connection between the pharynx. So towards up, you find the pharynx and towards down, you find the trachea. So this larynx, it has three main roles. So what are the three main roles? It acts as a passageway for air between the pharynx and trachea. Because it allows to flow the air between the pharynx and trachea as it is in between pharynx and trachea. So it also serves as a protective sphincter. It closes off the airway during swallowing to prevent the food from entering the lungs. I already said you, this protects the air from food entering into the lungs. So this also functions as the organ of voice production. So larynx, it helps in voice production. So it's also called as phonation. So what is the location of the larynx? It is found in the anterior part of the neck. So this is found in the anterior part of the neck, opposite to the third to sixth cervical vertebrae, right? So it lies between the pharynx above and trachea below. So it is more prominent in males. This larynx, it's more prominent in males because of the larger thyroid cartilage which forms the Adam's apple. What is Adam's apple? It is a visible bump on the front of the neck. So in this picture, you can clearly see the anatomy of the larynx with the main structures labeled. So here, they located above the pharynx at the top, you can see here hyoid bone. So this hyoid bone, it located above the larynx. So it supports the tongue and helps in swallowing. The next to hyoid bone, you can see the epiglottis. It's a flap-like structure that closes during swallowing to prevent the food from entering the trachea. Whereas thyroid cartilage, you can see here thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, cricothyroid muscles and cricothyroid ligament and also thyrohyoid membrane. So what does this thyroid cartilage? It's also called as Adam's apple. It provides the protection and structure. So this cricothyroid membrane, this connects to the thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. In between thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage, you can find this cricothyroid membrane. So what does it do? This is important in emergency airway access. So next to this, you can see the cricoid cartilage. So this is a ring shape. You can clearly see it's a ring shaped cartilage located below the thyroid cartilage. It forms the base of the larynx. This is a top thyroid cartilage, it's a top, and cricoid cartilage, it's a base of the larynx. So cricothyroid muscles. So this control the muscles which are present on cricothyroid membrane. They control the tension of the vocal cords, changing pitch during the speaking. So it changes the pitch. It adjusts your pitch while you are speaking. So trachea, the last part below the larynx is trachea. So this trachea is a tube that carries air down to the lungs. So structure of larynx. So what is the structure of larynx? It is made up of a cartilaginous framework. So it has many cartilages. It is formed with multiple cartilages. These cartilages are held together by ligaments, membranes and muscles which give the larynx its shape and allow movement during the breathing, swallowing and speaking. So what is the importance of these cartilages? So they give the shape and also they allow the movement during the breathing. Inside it is lined with the mucous membrane. So inside the cartilage it is lined with the mucous membrane that has respiratory epithelium beneath. So this helps to keep the surface moist and traps dust or particles. So how many cartilages are there within the larynx? There are 9 cartilages in total. So 3 single cartilages and 3 paired cartilages. So what are the 3 single cartilages? Here you can see in the picture the thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage and epiglottis. So these 3 are the single cartilages, whereas paired cartilages are arytenoid, cuneiform and corniculate cartilage. So thyroid cartilage, it forms the Adam's apple. So it protects the vocal cords and supports the front wall of the larynx. It also has 2 flat plates, laminae, that meet in the middle line. And the next single cartilage is cricoid cartilage. It's a ring-shaped cartilage below the thyroid. You can see here clearly it's a ring-shaped cartilage. It forms the base of the larynx and also it connects to the trachea. It acts as a strong support for the airway. And the epiglottis. Epiglottis is the another single cartilage. It's a leaf-shaped one. It's a leaf-shaped at the top of the larynx. So what does epiglottis do? During swallowing, it folds down to cover the laryngeal opening and it prevents the food or liquid entering the airway. So food shouldn't enter into the airway, right? So this epiglottis helps in preventing the food to enter the airway. So what are the paired cartilages? Arytenoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage and cuneiform cartilage. So arytenoid cartilage, it's a pyramid shape. You can clearly see here the blue colored one. It's a pyramid shape. It sits on the top of the cricoid cartilage. What is the function of this? It controls the vocal cord movement essential for the speech. So next, the other one, corniculate cartilage. So it's a small cone-shaped structure that sit on top of the arytenoid cartilage. Here you can see small cone shaped, right? The white color, and this is the coniculate cartilage. It helps supporting the opening of the larynx. So cuneiform cartilage. It's a small rod shaped cartilage found in the folds. So this membranes running from the arytenoids to the epiglottis. In between the membranes running to from arytenoid cartilage to epiglottis, you can find a rod-like cartilage. This is called as cuneiform cartilage. What does this do? It helps to keep the laryngeal opening stable. So when you think of a larynx like a musical instrument, so these cartilages, it form the framework. Ligaments and muscles adjust the cords, and the air passing through the produces sound. So these cartilages together, they give a larynx flexible structure and allowing movement needed for breathing, swallowing and voice production. So what are the muscles of larynx? The laryngeal muscles are divided into extrinsic and intrinsic groups. So what are extrinsic muscles? So these muscles are outside the larynx, but they are attached to it. So their job is to move the entire larynx up or down during the activities like swallowing or speaking. So what are examples of extrinsic muscle? Sternothyroid, thyroid and inferior pharyngeal constrictor. So intrinsic muscles. These are inside the name itself. Extrinsic means outside, intrinsic means inside. So these are inside the larynx and they control the vocal cords. So they open, close, tighten or relax the vocal cords. So what are the examples of intrinsic muscles? Cricothyroid, posterior cricoarytenoid and lateral cricoarytenoid, thyroarytenoid and interarytenoid. So what are the functions of the larynx? How many functions of the larynx are present? So it plays a major role in air passage, protection of the lower respiratory tract, phonation, respiration and sphincter action. So air passage. This larynx, it acts as a conduit for air between the pharynx and trachea. So this larynx, it ensures air passes freely to the lungs during breathing. So protection of the lower respiratory tract. During swallowing, the epiglottis closes over the laryngeal opening. So what does this do? It prevents the food or liquids from entering the trachea, protecting the lungs. So the third function is phonation, voice production. So the vocal cords vibrate when air passes through them, producing sound. So intrinsic muscles, it control the tension and position of the vocal cords to change the pitch and the tone. For example, if you have tight cords, it generates a high pitch. If you have loose cords, it generates a low pitch. So voice production. So it adjusts this. So these intrinsic muscles, they control the tension and position of the vocal cords to change the pitch and tone. And this larynx, it also functions in respiration. So the larynx, it controls airflow into the lungs by opening or closing the glottis. So what is glottis? The space between vocal cords, right? So in respiration, this larynx controls the airflow into the lungs by preventing the food passage, and also the posterior cricoarytenoid muscles, they help to keep the airway open during the breathing. So the last function of larynx is sphincter action. What does the sphincter action do? What do you mean by sphincter action? So this larynx acts as a sphincter, nothing but valve that closes tightly to prevent choking during swallowing. I already said you what this meant by choking during swallowing. So it helps to generate the pressure for activities like coughing, sneezing or straining, as in lifting or defecation. So how does blood supply to the larynx? You all know blood supply to every part of the body, right? So arterial supply, the venous drainage, how does it take place in larynx? It gets arterial supply from the superior and inferior laryngeal arteries. So which are the branches of the thyroid arteries. So venous drainage is done into the superior and inferior laryngeal veins. So which also drain into the internal jugular vein. So how does nerve supply takes place? So it's a recurrent laryngeal nerve. It's a branch of vagus nerve. It supplies all the intrinsic muscles except the cricothyroid. So how does the nerve supply? It also supplies through external branch of the superior laryngeal nerve and also through internal branch of the superior laryngeal nerve. So this larynx, it's a remarkable organ that performs multiple vital functions. It also acts as a guardian of the airway, a valve for pressure control, and also the instruments of voice. Instrument of voice, nothing but adjusting the voice according to the pitch you needed. So it's precise muscular and neurological coordination which allows us to breathe, speak, and swallow safely. So this it makes it one of the most essential structures in the respiratory system. So this is all about the structure and physiology of the larynx. Yeah, that's it for today's session, guys. In the next session, you are going to learn about the anatomy and physiology of the lower respiratory tract. Thank you. Have a good day.